As West Ham fans continue to wait for any sign of new players arriving through the front door, the latest news, I'm afraid, is once again centred around players who could be heading for the exit door instead. The names themselves won't necessarily come as any surprise to West Ham supporters. They include Edson Alvarez, Jean-Clair Todibo, Niclas Füllkrug, and Alphonse Areola. Now, there's a tug of war developing between Ajax and Real Sociedad for Edson Alvarez. Jean-Clair Todibo could be handed a Serie A lifeline by Napoli. Niclas Füllkrug is not training away from the rest of the group, but is yet to play a single minute of pre-season football. He's not injured. And whilst rumours persist that high-earning goalkeeper Alphonse Areola also could look increasingly likely to move on before this transfer window closes, there have yet to be any serious bids in for him. The problem in every single one of these cases is more or less the same. West Ham want permanent sales. The interested clubs seem to want to either take these players on loan or offer very low terms to take the players away from West Ham. Well, West Ham aren't interested or not in the mood to loan these players out for a season and then find themselves back in exactly the same position next summer, where these players return from a loan spell and West Ham have yet again got a problem to decide what to do with them. West Ham obviously want to continue reducing the wage bill. We also want to generate more transfer funds and allow Nuno serious money to invest in strengthening the squad this summer. And the message coming out of West Ham is pretty clear. You either buy these players or they stay. But it does raise an interesting question. Does Nuno actually want any of these players to remain? Because here's the irony. Every single one of them could probably play a major role in helping West Ham get promoted straight back to the Premier League. You've got to take Edson Alvarez as the first example. If there was ever a league that suited his game, it's probably the Championship. It's physical, it's intense, combative, and it demands players who are prepared to put their bodies on the line. Alvarez kind of relishes that side of the game. I guess the only concern, of course, as we've seen throughout his career, is whether Alvarez can avoid getting yellow and red cards. You know, it's his discipline. His aggressive style often walks a very fine line, and in the Championship, referees won't hesitate to dish out yellow cards. If he continues picking up bookings at the rate he's done previously, West Ham could find themselves without one of their key midfielders for large chunks of the season through suspension. But on the plus side, I guess, a player like Alvarez may get away with more because there's no VAR in the Championship. But financially, though, the deal wasn't straightforward for him to go. West Ham value him at around 15 million. His wages believed to be around 80,000, which will probably go down to 40,000 a week following the relegation wage reduction, are also kind of, even that is proving to be a stumbling block for many interested clubs. Ajax remain interested in bringing him back there, whilst Real Sociedad are also pushing hard, apparently. However, the two clubs have very different ideas about what the player is worth. No acceptable offer has yet been received by West Ham. Real Sociedad reportedly want to pay around half the value he's worth up front, with the remainder made up through add-ons. Unsurprisingly, West Ham have shown very little interest in entertaining such a proposal. Ajax present another interesting situation. We still owe them something like about 11-12 million pounds from the original transfer agreement for this player. Reports suggest that Ajax would actually prefer to create new funds by selling other players in their squad rather than simply writing off the outstanding balance against his purchase. Now, I've got to admit, I don't fully understand the financial reasoning behind such an approach, but I'm sure there are accounting or cash flow considerations that make it more attractive from Ajax perspective to sell players in order to buy Alvarez. And then there's Jean-Clair Todibo. Now, this one feels like a wasted opportunity. When West Ham signed him, we all saw the qualities he possesses. He's quick, powerful, composed on the ball, physically dominant. You drop him into the championship and you'd expect him to look like one of the best defenders in that division. Unfortunately, however, something clearly hasn't worked between Todibo and Nuno. Well, you could argue something clearly hasn't worked between Todibo and all the managers he's played for at West Ham United. Look, whether the disagreements are down to tactical, personal, or simply down to trust, it could be a combination of all those things. But all the signs suggest that the relationship between manager and player isn't where it needs to be. Now, Napoli are the latest club reportedly interested in the player, but only if they fail to sign Chelsea defender Benoit Badiashile. Now, personally, if I was Todibo, I'm not sure I'd be overly thrilled about the possibility of joining any club as their second choice. Juventus and Fenerbahce, if you remember, when we got him, AC Milan were dithering as well. And that's how we managed to get him at West Ham. But apparently, Juventus and Fenerbahce have also been linked. Now, I know Fenerbahce has just signed the Man City defender, so maybe their interest is no longer at Nathan Ake. They've just signed. But once again, we're kind of hearing the same story. If they're going to go for him, they'd either want a loan deal or they want a very low sell. So until somebody's prepared to meet West Ham's demands, Todibo will remain at West Ham. Then you move on to Niclas Füllkrug. It's fair to say his career at West Ham has never really got going. Injuries have prevented him from building any momentum, and now we're approaching a new championship season where the German striker has still yet to feature in any pre-season football. Now, reports suggest he's back working on grass. He's actually back fully training with the rest of the squad. So he's not injured in any way. And as things stands, there remains considerable uncertainty over his future. The frustrating thing again, a bit like Alvarez and Todibo, if fully fit, the championship can actually really suit Fullkrug perfectly. Big, physical centre forwards have always thrived in this division. Fullkrug has the strength to occupy centre halves. He's excellent in the air, and inside the penalty area, he remains a genuine goal scorer. But if he stays fit, you'd fancy him to score a lot of goals. But the problem is, if he stays fit, and that's what we've been saying ever since he arrived at West Ham United. Now, again, there are clubs showing interest, particularly in Germany, but no one has yet made a formal bid. Once again, most of the conversations seem to appear to revolve around loan deals. And once again, West Ham's answer is the same. We want a permanent transfer or nothing. And then we come on to Alphonse Areola. Now, this is probably where opinions will split the fan base. Personally, I still believe Areola is our better keeper between him and Hermansen. His reflexes are still outstanding. He demonstrated that in the game that he played recently. Was it against Stevenage? He's capable of making saves very few goalies manage. And over the last couple of seasons, he's rescued West Ham on more than one occasion. But Nuno, however, appears fully committed to Mads Hermansen as his number one. Now, the Dane was brought in largely because of his ability with the ball at his feet and his distribution from the back. I'm going to be honest, though, I'm still waiting to see enough evidence that his distribution offers such a significant improvement to justify replacing a goalie of Areola's quality. When I compare the two, I'd still back Areola's shot-stopping ability every day of the week. But then that's me, and I know I'm one of only a few people that think that. But football isn't always about making the better saves. Areola is one of the club's highest earners. He was on 120 grand a week, so with a 50% reduction, he'll be down to about 60 grand a week. He's no longer first choice, and he'll understandably want to be playing regular football. From West Ham's point of view, moving his wages off the books does make perfect financial sense. But all these players are on big wages. Areola, 120 grand a week. Fullkrug, about 100 grand a week. Alvarez, about 90, 100 grand a week. Todibo, about 80, 85 grand a week. So again, if only if someone is prepared to buy Areola or any of these players, will West Ham be interested in letting them go? Finally, let's touch on two names that continue to generate a lot of noise on social media, and that's Taty and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Every few days, another rumour appears suggesting that one or both players are unhappy, looking to move, or attracting interest elsewhere. Now, here's the important thing. At this moment in time, there's nothing official. No formal bids, no serious negotiations, no indication from West Ham that either player is close to leaving or West Ham are willing to let either player go. In fact, the latest suggestions are that Nuno fully expects Castellanos and Wan-Bissaka to be part of this squad when the championship season gets underway. That shouldn't really come as a surprise. Castellanos was brought in last season to lead the line, and despite reports of the player being unhappy and asking to leave, I believe that's more to do with agent shenanigans than anything else. Plus, no club has come forward to put in any serious offer, and the Spanish clubs that are apparently interested in him have shown an interest, saying, they can't afford to buy him, and yet again, they either want a loan or West Ham United are going to have to end up letting him go for next to nothing. Well, that's not going to happen, is it? And perhaps these clubs have completely missed the stories of both Fernandes and Somerville being sold for a colossal amount of money. Furthermore, West Ham are actively not looking to sell him. Nuno sees Castellanos as an important part of the team, and there is a feeling inside the club that he can flourish over the course of a championship campaign. And the same goes for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Yes, there's apparent interest from the likes of Arsenal, of all clubs. Who else? Was it an Italian club that made some kind of lowball bid for him? And apparently Everton are still interested. But these are rumours. There's a huge difference between rumour and actual offers on the table. Until somebody matches West Ham's valuation, there really isn't a conversation to be had. But at the same time, Nuno doesn't want Aaron Wan-Bissaka to leave. Yes, he's lost his place in the starting lineup, but it's for him to prove that he's capable of winning it back and retaining it. So while supporters are understandably desperate for news of signings of our own, much of the club's work at the moment remains focused on trying to resolve these players or these outgoing transfer rumours. Look, the problem is the market simply isn't moving in the way West Ham would hope for. Clubs want loans or they want low ball bids. West Ham want permanent deals. And until someone blinks, don't be surprised if many of these stories continue to rumble on well into August. And if no suitable offer arrives, don't be shocked if one or two of these players are still wearing the claret and blue of West Ham when the championship season kicks off. That may not have been the original plan, but for Nuno, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst outcome either, because despite all the speculation, there's still plenty of quality in this group of players, and if they remain committed to the cause, who knows what they can offer West Ham moving forward. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll be back soon when we've signed a player. Have a good evening.